In this episode of the podcast, I'm going to talk about your business superpower. It's called networking. And if you're not networking, you are leaving growth on the table. I want to talk about why you should network and, more importantly, how. Stay tuned.
In a world of incompetent bosses, micromanagers, and petty tyrants, you are listening to The Leadersmith. Now, here is your host, Darren Gertis.
Okay, so we're going to talk about networking. I'm going to give you a number of examples, some public examples, some from some major books, and then I'll give you a few of my own personal examples about networking. But by the time I'm done with this, I hope to convince you that you need to be out networking. So the first example comes from an unlikely source. It's from a book by Chris Matthews entitled Hardball. So in Hardball, Chris Matthews talks about Lyndon Baines Johnson's experiences as he came to Washington for the first time. I'm going to read this passage. In the Depression days of 1931, the Dodge had become a boarding hotel, accommodating several U.S. senators and at least one Supreme Court justice. It also housed a less glittery tenantry. 2 floors below the lobby level, there stretched a long corridor of cubicles, all sharing a common bath. At night, this dank underworld came alive, percolating with the dreams of young bright-eyed men lucky to be working for the Congress of the United States. One of these subterranean residents was a gawky 22-year-old giant with elephantine ears who had just become secretary to Congressman Richard M. Kleberg, Texas Democrat. Just 2 weeks earlier, he had been teaching high school in Houston. Now, his first night at the Dodge, he did something strange, something he would admit to a biographer and intimate, Doris Kearns, in the months just before he died. That night, Lyndon Baines Johnson took 4 showers. 4 times he walked towel-draped to the communal bathroom down the long hall. 4 times he turned on the water and lathered up. The next morning, he got up early to brush his teeth. 5 times, with 5-minute intervals between. The young men from Texas had a mission. There were 75 other congressional secretaries living in the building. He wanted to meet as many of them as possible, as fast as possible. The strategy worked. Within 3 months of arriving in Washington, the newcomer got himself elected Speaker of the Little Congress, the organization of all House staff assistants. In this, his Washington debut, Johnson was displaying his basic political method. He was proving that getting ahead was just a matter of getting to know people. In fact, it's the same thing. Okay, that's a great start to talking about networking. Getting ahead is a matter of getting to know people. Now, I want to give you another example of doing the same kind of thing. Mike Bloomberg of New York, before he was Mike Bloomberg that everybody knows, he was just like everybody else. He was kind of floundering around, didn't know what he was going to do for his job. He got a job in finance, and he devised this really interesting method, and this was in a book, Getting There, by Gillian Zoe Siegel. She talked about how Bloomberg would go get 4 coffees, 2 teas and 2 coffees, one with cream and sugar, one without, or another tea with cream and sugar, and one without. And then he would walk the halls on Saturday at the financial establishment where he worked just to see if anybody was there. I got a coffee for you. You have some time? And he would just bend their ear and just kind of absorb whatever they understood or whatever they knew that they could help him. Who doesn't want, hey, I got a coffee for you? Sure, come on in. It opened doors, and it was a way that he got to network with people and get to know them. It was a brilliant masterstroke. If you want to network with people, and this has happened to me, somebody has done this for me, what I'm about to tell you. So this wasn't about networking, this was about sales, making a sale, but it was still a brilliant strategy. So there was this one person, I can't remember the book that this came from, but what they would do was they'd read the newspaper, and when somebody was highlighted for some achievement, won an award, they would get the article, blow it up, frame it, and then call that person and say, hey, look, I read about you in the newspaper. I want to bring you a blown up 3x5 foot poster of your achievement. I just thought it was great, and when can I drop it by? And And that always opened doors, and this person almost always made a sale too. Now this is about networking, not just the sales. I want you to focus on the networking side, but that opens doors. Somebody did that for me with a newspaper article. It still hangs on my wall to this day. This was like 20 years ago. Okay, need access to the powerful, people that you otherwise can't get doors open to because gatekeepers block it. Work for charity. If you work for the same charity as somebody who is somebody that you want to do business with, and you call them, you look, let's say it's the United Way campaign, you pick up the phone and say, hey, I'm trying to get to hold of you about the United Way campaign. They will talk to you because you're working for the cause that they care about. And that example comes from Tom Stanley's Networking with Millionaires. He talked about 8 types of networkers. Now listen to what he calls them, but they all amount to the same thing. Essentially, it's being a connector. He talks about different types: the family advisor, the advocate, the publicist, the mentor, the talent scout, the purchasing agent, the loan broker, the revenue enhancer. Who doesn't want to talk to somebody who will enhance the revenue, or somebody who's going to mentor, or somebody who's going to be a consigliere, who's going to work on behalf of your family's interests, not for being paid, but just because that's the kind of person that they are. They're a connector of some type. In reality, you will be the same person in 5 years as you are today, except for the people that you meet and the books that you read, said Charlie Tremendous Jones. And you want to understand that. Read more, connect more. If you do those 2 things, you will rise. Now, let me give you some of my own examples. Do you drink coffee? Most people drink coffee. I've been working on a project with my students at Charleston Southern, where we're helping a missionary in Colombia who is funding one of his social entrepreneurial ventures, where he's getting homeless women off the street, many who are so desperate they're in prostitution, and he's funding it with Colombian coffee. Right? I mean, this is a pretty powerful thing. So he's using the resources that he has there, Colombian coffee. He's in Medellin, and he's selling that in the United States, and the proceeds from that go 100%, the profit, 100% of the profit goes to get homeless women off the streets. Now, if you want to know more about that, go to bebebeans, bebebeans.com. My graduate students were working on a project. They named it. They're working on the website. They're getting all this together so that they can help him be more efficient with his supply chain, because this is just a great cause. Right? Am I going to get anything out of this myself? No. Well, do I expect anything to come back to me? Probably not. But that's the point of networking. You don't do it for you do it for others. In fact, that leads us to the quotation for contemplation for today. It comes from Harvey Mackay. By the way, Harvey Mackay writes great books, many of them on networking. He said this: "My golden rule of networking, don't keep score." Which is a great advice. Now, if you don't keep score, you're doing it for the right reasons, for the right motives, just to be a good networker. But let me tell you one last story before I'm done. In the podcast, episodes 103 and 108, I interviewed a guy named Tim Prairie. He's a childhood friend, so he came on my show to talk. He had some expert knowledge, and so he came on my show to talk about Jim Rohn, and it was a great time. After that, this is a good friend of mine that I grew up with. He said, hey, look, you need to talk to this guy named Jim Kane. So he made a referral to me. Now, that's, what a friend will do, right? He'll make a referral. So I talked to this guy named Jim Kane. I don't know Jim Kane from Adam's House Cat. Jim Kane has some specialized knowledge about Ernest Shackleton. He does team trainings about various things, whether it's outdoors or corporate or whatever. And he has done a particular training about Ernest Shackleton. He has like 20 books on the subject. So he came on for episode 11. Then he made a referral to me. Again, I don't know this guy other than the podcast. Then he made a referral to me to meet someone else. Then he came back on the episode 113 to talk about how trainers, like he's a trainer, does like ropes courses, and how trainers had to convert to the online space during Zoom. It was a powerful episode. That was 113. Then he introduced me to the practice group where these trainers kind of meet and talk about how to do it. And so I'm part of that group now. And then I'm now writing a book chapter with them because of that introduction. And then he introduced me to another person hey, you ought to meet this person. Look, I'm in his debt again and again and again and again. He might not be keeping score, but I am. It's 5-0 and I'm losing. I'm looking for ways to pay the guy back because he's just been so good to me. That is a result of powerful networking. That's the way that people should be feeling or receiving this. Okay, so he's not keeping score, but I'm keeping score. And because of equity theory, where you want to balance that, I want to pay the guy back. That's how networking works for you. Because the person that you're doing all these things for, those people are looking for ways to be good back to you. Okay, so I have to wrap up, but I hope that helps you understand networking and how you should be thinking about this. By the way, read his books if you're interested in teamwork. I'm trying to pay back the score, remember. If you're looking for an excellent trainer, and I can verify because I've gotten to know the guy over the last month or so, he's an excellent trainer. His name is Jim Kane. Teamwork and Team Play is his website. See how I'm trying to do that? Because I want to balance the scales. That is networking. Okay? So, hey, I hope that helps you understand networking a little bit better, and I hope that helps you become the kind of leader that you would want to follow.